Right, well, thanks very much. And thank you for this opportunity to tell you about our work at Govan Old. As many of you will know, I've been working at Govan Old on and off since the early 90s. Initially attracted because of the famous collection of sculpture, the evidence of this early medieval dynastic burial ground of the kings of Strathclyde, which provides the kind of rationale and the kind of the excitement at Govan Old. As you'll hear, the archaeology we're going to talk about is linked to a program of redevelopment which is currently being undertaken by the local community group that owns the church, the Govan Heritage Trust. And the central goal of this work is to provide suitable visitor facilities to accommodate the growing demand for cultural heritage tourism, and to allow the trust to host performances and other kinds of events, and generally to think about how we can make the place sustainable by generating income. So at the Govan Heritage Trust, one of the things we've kind of come to realize is that we need to grow a replacement parish, because the parish has been the custodians of this sculpture for generations, and they've done a very good job of it until the Church of Scotland shut in 2007. So we at Glasgow University developed a program called Dig Where You Stand, and its main purpose really was to attract a new generation of custodians, a new generation of parishioners. And this wouldn't have been able to be done without the support of a great number of Glasgow University students, a number of whom you're just about to meet. I'm particularly grateful for a grant from the Society of Antiquaries to help us support our work last season. And I'm particularly proud that the talks you're about to hear have been developed and kind of imagined by the students themselves. Before we start, I want to single out one of the member of the team who's here, but he's not going to be speaking, and this is Stephen Miller, who is a former student, and he's been really instrumental in organizing the field work and has for the last few years, and he's really been inspired this great cohort of undergraduates, as well as inspiring our community volunteers. So this is just giving you a photograph, let you see, and if the photograph was just a little bit higher, you'd be able to see the tower of Glasgow University. So the church is very close to the university, so it makes it very convenient for us here. So the first talk is by Alexander McClure. He is a junior honor student, but he, even only going into his third year now, he's an experienced veteran of our digs there. So he's got a lot to say about that, and he's going to be telling us about how we responded to the need to provide a kind of accessible source of information about how to dig, about how the excavations were run, and this is what he's going to be telling us about.
So the Govan Old Dig Where You Stand project grew out of a team of student and community volunteers aiming to engage the local community of Govan with their heritage, as well as to equip our team of students and volunteers with archaeological skills and experience. The project has grown into a highly collaborative and student-led organisation, and as you will see in the following presentations by my fellow students and colleagues, this collaborative background of the project has allowed for the opportunity to incorporate personal enthusiasms and ideas into our work at the site. Over the past 2 years of fieldwork at Govan, the collaborative ethos of Dig Where You Stand has manifested itself in a variety of manners. The most tangible example of this ethos in fieldwork practices can be seen in the Govan Old Archaeological Field Manual, or the GOA Guide, which, as you can see, has seen a great deal of usage already and needs a new front cover. So, the GOA Guide was created following a series of meetings with our team, with each section written up by specific students with a particular interest or expertise in the relevant area. These submissions were then edited and stylized to achieve a cohesive and easily understandable format, resulting in an end product which covers a vast range of archaeological skills and techniques. What the GOA Guide represents is the peer-to-peer teaching which is of utmost importance within our project, allowing for students to teach other students through collaborative knowledge sharing. This allowed for those doing the learning to choose how the guide was laid out, and owing to the great number of students involved, The end product really does provide a format which is easily readable and digestible to its users. Really, all that the guide is a paper manifestation of the skills which your team have collectively picked up through their archaeological experience, much of which is owed to Govan Old. And it allows for reference by anybody on site at any time as and when it's needed for a range of archaeological skills and techniques. In constructing the guide in this way, we were able to retain a focus on the student-led ethos of the project, allowing students to teach one another in a low-stress setting in order to create an environment of curiosity and learning. The Dig Where You Stand report produced last year is a report on all the different aspects of activity undertaken by the Dig Where You Stand team. It consists of 15 personal reflections on the project written by students, and it covers a vast range of different subject matters, from the archaeological features themselves to how health and well-being is managed and promoted on the site. The report offers a different sort of publication, not usually seen following fieldwork, and it really conveys the personal connection between students and our site. The report and the opportunity which it presented for students and volunteers perhaps represents a culmination of the collaborative ethos of the project, as it allows our team to have their name attached to the work which they've done, instilling a real sense of pride and responsibility. All of these smaller units of interest which make up the project, such as the individual entries and the guide, or a specific and small part of fieldwork written about in the report, represent building blocks making up a larger whole which allows the project to fulfill its aims. At the core of these aims is the need to facilitate connections. These connections can be between students, volunteers, the archaeology itself, but primarily we desire to create connections between the community and their heritage. We're able to do this through the confidence that our students have in their work, a confidence which is built from all these smaller aspects of the project that I have discussed. Students are able to talk about what they do with the confidence that they've had a real and positive role within it. Archaeology aside, one of the most fulfilling results of these smaller collaborative projects is a real connection with the community. The community loves to talk to us about what we do on site, and we love to talk to them about it as well. And we're able to provide them with a meaningful knowledge and understanding. In a way, every conversation we have with the public on the site makes them, if even for a short while, an extension of our team. Thank you.
The next talk by Michael Hogg is one of our senior honours students, and he brings a particular experience of being an active member of the undergraduate community who's active in widening access to Glasgow University to a wider and more diverse audience. And he's going to talk a little bit about this community engagement.
So I'll take you through our approach to community engagement and why it's the keystone to our Govan Old project. So through our support and outreach methods, we've encouraged the Govan community, the university community, and the Govan Stones volunteers to get involved with the Dig Where You Stand project. And this is possible through the support and outreach methods from the University of Glasgow, the Society of Antiquaries, the Govan Stones team, and Clyde Archaeology, who all help us out in some capacity. And to outreach to these communities, we've had coverage in the national press, through social media, and our media platforms on Facebook and X. So what does the community get up to when they come to Govan Old? Well, we probed and probed and probed. And the community worked hard with this. So on the Govan Old site, we have a probing survey of 5 by 5 metre grids. And this really allows for a range of activities for our community, volunteers to get involved with a range of activities during even a single day. This includes probing, deturfing, troweling, cleaning, photographing, drawing, and recording. And of course, all of this was student-led under the direction of Professor Driscoll. So this carries on the theme that the project, the students lead, the students teach, and we continually build this community. So I did this precisely with Rob and Ted, who came along to the site for one day during the field school. And Ted was 8 years old, and he told me, I've wanted to be an archaeologist since I was 4. And so he had wanted to be an archaeologist longer than I had been an archaeology student. So I knew I was in. I knew who the boss was straight away. So you can see them sitting amongst the probing grids. Those are the flags that they laid out. And you can see in the middle image, that's their finds tree of anything that they found of interest. And you can notice this stone on the front and the foreground. Well, that was the first thing Ted pulled out of the ground, and it was one of our special finds from the day. And the beauty of having Ted on this site is he didn't really have this kind of methodological approach. He would just go, let's unearth that flag, and we'd go and unearth it, and that was the first thing he found. And he would say, let's go unearth that flag next, and he found a grave marker. So whether that was beginner's luck or something else, I'll leave that for you to decide. But yeah, so we uncovered a piece of 9th century stone decorated with interlace, which is quite remarkable. But the important thing here is that Rob and Ted's contributions were meaningful and they mattered. And this was expressed in many ways, as Ted and Rob got to experience the many previously listed things that we did during the day as they spent time with me. So this was Ted looking at the gravestones we'd uncovered and started to record before he started his probing survey. That was him unearthing the grave marker that he found immediately. There's Ted with his Ted-sized bucket taking his spoil to the spoil heap. This was Ted looking at the photograph log, and we were going through how to photograph his grave marker. His handwriting was a bit of a bit too big for it, but we managed to squeeze it in. This is Ted photographing the grave marker in all its glory. And again, I had to edit his chalkboard just to make sure everything fit. And at the end of the day, Ted was satisfied, giving us a thumbs up, conquering the spoil heap, becoming an archaeologist. The good thing about teaching Ted was it reinforced and enhanced my abilities as an archaeologist, as you have to explain the methods and practices to those who have not done archaeology before, but then again, Ted was a child, so then you had to say in a more simplistic way. And it really was a great teaching moment for me and a learning moment for me. But this is just some of my personal experiences of some of the interactions I had at Govan. Now, if you can imagine the impact on the community, if you have dozens of students, staff, Govan Stone volunteers who interact, teach with the members of the community all the time, every day, then you can start to grasp how important and how large the activity and the buzz around archaeology really becomes. So just to finish my portion, this image here was taken on the day where the Govan Partick footbridge opened, which physically connected and bridged the gap between two communities of Glasgow. What a wonderful day it was as we recorded 1,862 visitors entering the church throughout the day. And the buzz around the archaeology certainly kept us all busy. Though can we say the same thing about bridging the social gap in our community between the university, the Govan Stones volunteers and Greater Govan, with what we're doing at Govan Old Church? The Dig Where You Stand project is equipping people with the skills and knowledge to maintain and manage their heritage with their community. But as you will see in Rachel's presentation coming up, the community already has a direct interest and ownership with the heritage of Govan. Thank you for your time.
So our third speaker is Rachel MacDonald, who's also a senior honours student, another veteran of quite a few seasons already at Govan Old. And it was her initiative to begin capturing an oral history of Govan Old, something which I guess we thought might be a good idea, but we had never really gotten organised to do, and she's done it.
Hi everyone. So I'm Rachel, and as Stephen says, I've been working at Govan Old as a student volunteer since 2023. And I've been running a little thing for the past season, well, technically the 2024 dig season, and I call it the Govan Archives Project. So this is a project which focuses on collecting stories from the local community and provides a space for them to be heard within our archaeology. It began in spring of 2024 as a pet project of mine, and since then it seems to have grown arms and legs as well, standing up here, talking to all of you about it now. But I just thought, with Govan being an urban site, we have such an access to the local community, and they constantly use our churchyard as a dog walking kind of thoroughfare. And so I thought, if they ask us constantly what we are doing and what we are finding, they've got such a connection to this that extends past our interest. And they've got something that a trench cannot offer us, a living memory. And on the slide, I should mention this is one of the examples of the interviews that hopefully they'll all look like, but we're still in the process of, after exams and assessments, getting a team together to sort through all of the transcriptions. But for the likes of Govan, this living memory reaches beyond the current generation, as they act as messengers, carrying the stories of their parents who, like Graham's, toiled away in the shipyards like Harland and Wolff, which abutted the east side of the churchyard, where at the end of the day, he would watch the gates apart, releasing workers in rows of 6 or 7 wide. Graham's father was among these workers, and it tells us of the industrial life that Govan has to offer. And this can be reflected in the ash that we find in our stratigraphy, which Luca and McCall will talk about in his presentation later. But then to Jane and Douglas, a married couple who were born in Govan and met as children playing amongst the hogbacks, which sat outside in the churchyard propped up against the railings as you see in the picture there. But they returned to their childhood haunts on the bridge open day that Michael spoke about earlier. And they told us of their memories here and how important it was for them to return and the pride of place that they had in their home. As you might hear later on, that it was a working man's area, and they had a lot of pride in that. That day brought, as again Michael said, over 1,800 visitors to our site. But when we close the trench for the season and we leave, the daily dog walkers, like Freddie, make their way through the church. And they look after their place, by Freddie in particular, who sweeps the gravestones from the grass when the council mows the grounds. Now, for the interviews themselves, there was one rule. It had to be a conversation, which meant minimal questions, really just letting them talk. They spoke of their memories there, like the tenements that are on Golspie Street, just in the bottom picture. Now that's next to the previous Govan Old Church that was moved to Golspie Street brick by brick when the current one was built.
Great place to stay. It was poor, and it was slums. It was
a working man's area, Jane.
I mean, it was full of deprivation, but
it had a bit of heart to it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I mean, like where our close. I mean, anybody that was lucky enough to have like brass a door handle or a nameplate, it used to be shine to within an inch of its life.
Are you local?
I've stayed here my whole life, 51 years I've stayed here, and I absolutely love the place, love it. Yeah. My aunties were married in here,
really?
In the church. A couple of my cousins were married in it. We used to come in and play a bit in it when we were boys for years and years. But because we've stayed here so long, we kind of look after it now and keep it clean and cover all the graves.
These were the voices of Govan Old, and they're contributing a living memory to the archaeological narrative that we are building as we strategically excavate through Trench G. And I would have pointed out a picture that we had of a gravestone, because when we unearth things, sometimes we don't know that the gravestones are in these massive tabletop gravestones. And when you flip off the turf, sometimes on the underside of that is a mirrored engraving of the inscription that's on the gravestone. And to me, that reflects a little bit of the living memory that you can get out of these interviews. So I'd like to say that this is actually our story, and it's not just the archaeological one. Thank you.
So our fourth speaker is Luca McCall, also another senior honours student, another stalwart of the team. And I think he's going to be telling us a bit about some of the actual archaeology we've discovered. But I think he represents a kind of, he's a testament to our inclusive approach to participation here.
I am just going to be talking about where we are in terms of some of our archaeology. So our excavations have concentrated primarily in the southeast corner of the churchyard, in Trench G. And this trench was originally opened in the 1990s as part of the Time Team excavations in Govan, which established, among other things, the presence of a 9th century metalled road surface. Now, the east-west orientation of this road implied a connection with a nearby court hill, known as the Doomster Hill. So, I will return to that. So, September 2023, we returned to site, and we spent 2 weeks locating and excavating the backfill of the 1990s trenches. Now, by the end of this period, the site looked something like this, and for reference, everything south of the structure, the square structure, was backfill, which I was fortunate enough to spend all of my time in. So, fortunately, we knew we were in the right place when, on the last day of the dig, and I'm told the best finds are always found on the last days of digs, the shield bearer emerged. Now, this is just a medieval carved stone depicting a man in profile, obviously carrying a shield, and what is potentially a spear or some sort of lance or something. But I think we've brought a model with us, so if anyone wants closer inspection to this stone, I think it's at the back of the church, yes. Okay. So our excavations have revealed 3 key features that I am going to run through, and we start with the structure itself. So the key question that we have is when does this structure date to? Modern rubbish pits to the northeast and northwest of the structure indicate exactly that, modern usage. And these are characterized by plastic, ceramics, slate, modern bricks and stuff like that, industrial waste. And we're fortunate enough at Govan to have a really broad range of documentary sources that we are able to draw on. Now, the most significant of these is Kyle's 1809 map, which is an incredibly detailed map of the family burial plots and layers in the churchyard. However, more relevant for us is the southeast corner, which shows no structure. No structure is indicated, and the X that is in the southeast corner is a tree. So, further sources tell us that a sarcophagus discovered in 1855 was housed in a structure that was built prior to 1894. Now, the first edition OS map proves particularly helpful here, which shows us that there is a structure. So the key point, really, about the documentary sources is that they indicate a mid-19th century date for the structure. However, its depth and its size suggest to us that it is older. We are yet to find any construction phase. No obvious cut has emerged, and stratigraphically, at least, it is comparable to some of our medieval deposits, most notably the road surface. Now, the road surface is indicated by those compacted bands of pebbles overlain by a wedge of orange clay and a prominent root. It is delineated by those much larger stones. And if I return to the previous slide, I don't have a north arrow here, unfortunately. The east-west orientation is important to bear in mind. So I was able to clean this up in 2024 and expose it in plan for the first time. From on top of the road, a deposit on top of the road, I excavated a furnace bottom, which was significant in adding to our picture of medieval Govan. So, finally, the third feature that we have been investigating is the wall. Now, in 2024, we picked up a distinct change in the character of the wall. Now, the difference between the two courses is that the upper course of the wall is made up of typically much larger stones. It's more well made, and it's more planar. Whereas the lower course is made up of much smaller stones, and it's much more cavernous. So we began to think, okay, what might this indicate? Now again, our documentary sources prove useful with this lithograph from 1857, which depicts the previous church. Now the present church was built in 1888, and this lithograph indicates that the previous church was surrounded by what we may estimate to be a sort of a roughly hip-height wall. And if we begin to if we take a step back and think about what was sort of happening in Govan during this period of time, we had a huge amount of industrial expansion, and Rachel's already mentioned the Harland and Wolff shipyard, and we may think that the wall was raised in order to insulate the church from what you would imagine would be a lot of noise and industrial debris in the surrounding area, as Govan transitions from a rural environment to an urban one. So the future holds a huge amount for Govan, in my opinion, but specifically, I would love to investigate the relationship between the structure and the road. And if we are able to determine a relationship, establish a relationship between these two features, we may begin to question the usage of the structure. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rob Ferro, and he's a junior honors student. And what he's going to be talking about is how we've tried to extend our digital capacity at Govan. Some of you will know that we've done a lot of, and when I say we, I mean other people, in particular my former PhD student Megan Caston, who has made detailed 3D models of all the sculpture. So it's really important to have this kind of younger, tech-savvy generation on our side. And Rob is going to show us how we've been taking this kind of digital recording to the level of actually looking at the whole site rather than just individual finds.
So I'm going to be talking about aerial surveying I've been doing at Govan Old Church. So at the start of last year, I had access to a thermal drone for another project I was working on, and decided to bring it back up with me for the weekend and try and do a thermal survey of the churchyard. As you can see from the screen, there's not a thermal survey. It didn't quite work out as well as the other project I was working on. The soil at Govan isn't quite very good for it, but I was able to capture from the secondary camera an orthographic image of the churchyard, which we were able to use for the Goa Guides map of the church. So when we're laying out the grids, we're able to overlay a very detailed, high-resolution image that you can take centimetre-accurate measurements from when laying out the grids. Also at Govan, we started using a drone photography sheet as well as the standard camera sheet to be able to take images of the graves. Particularly for graves like this, you'd have to stand on a bucket on top of a chair to be able to capture everything you really want in the image. And so this aerial perspective was very useful for composing images and capturing all the data in as few images as possible. As well as that, it was very good when we're laying out the grids for volunteers to be able to see very visually that their grids are square. You can do as many Pythagoras' theorems on your grids, but actually being able to get an aerial picture and seeing that we've laid out the grids perfectly was very nice for them. Also, capturing work happening was very good. You can see that all the busyness of the trench from above, which you can miss from just getting a standard ground approach. Furthermore, it was very useful on the bridge opening day to be able to tie, as the professor said in his introduction, to be able to tie Govan with Finnieston and Partick as the two were joined by the bridge, and being able to show volunteers as the bridge was being opened, the relation between the church and wider Glasgow was very helpful. I was also able to do on the site several photogrammetric surveys of the trench itself, using base points that I'd taken throughout you can't really see them on the image, but throughout the trench there are several base stations. I was able to tie in to the OS grid to create 2D rasters which are able to take measurements from both X and Y, but also Z values of the heights of the stones. So it really ties together the whole trench. Although there's drawings that students have taken, being able to overlay them onto a coloured image is quite helpful. Also, being able to have such a small drone on site, I was able to get it out on quite a few days to be able to take multiple repeated scans of the trench. So you can see there's small differences. These are 2 days apart between the structure and the trench, where you can see even just the amount of water in the soil brings out the stones compared to different features, and being able to get sort of rapid response aerial imagery to be able to spot features. Also, from these pictures, you're able to create digital elevation models, which give you a quick and easy sense of what stage we're at in different parts of the trench, being able to compare sort of the north and the south, the depth that we are in the trench, which can be quite useful and a nice visual element. Although you can go with a dumpy and take measurements, it's sometimes quite nice to be able to see quite a colourful picture. And then finally, from these scans I've done, I've created a 3D render of the trench, which at the moment, if you go and visit Govan, you'll just see a backfilled hole, although some of the structure is still visible. This has been quite useful in showing people visiting the site what the state of excavation was when we finished it at the end of last year, as well as coming back to it. We'll be able to know what to aim for and know when we fully have excavated all the backfill, as we can see the structure. So my aims for next year are to be able to continue doing aerial imagery, create more 3D scans. As well, I've been working on the process of creating 3D models of the trench, which I've got a few a bit small to hold up for now, but they'll be in the back with the 3D printed Govan shield bearer stone. So it'd be good to be able to build up a record of 3D printed as well as 3D models, stratigraphic layers of the trench, and that's hopefully for the future. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Moira Piazzoli, who graduated last year in archaeology and Gaelic. And she's currently working on an MPhil looking at aspects of the cultural heritage, archaeological heritage in Lewis, but still working with us as well. And more remarkable than being a fluent Gaelic speaker is that she hails from Switzerland. Anyway, our approach to inclusiveness extends to mental health, and she's really been behind our wellness initiative, which she's going to tell you about, which has received a lot of positive feedback.
Thank you. Right, so this is something that's been running in the background of what we have heard so far, all these activities happening at Govan Old. And the context for us wanting to do this it's finding that slightly complicated relationship between archaeology and well-being that increasingly is brought up. So on the one hand, we have socially engaged approaches that are typically recognized as being beneficial to communities and individuals' well-being. But also, on the other hand, there are well-being issues faced by many in the profession, whether it's financial pressures and insecurity, temporary contracts, or working conditions. So there's this tension there, and with all of this in mind, we thought that Govan Old, as both a field school and a community project, working with several different groups, was really in a privileged position for working on both these aspects, and also had, therefore, some kind of duty of doing so. So we went into the last field season with the explicit aim of having a tangible impact on participant well-being, meaning everyone on site, from students, volunteers, staff, as much as we could. And we did that, first of all, by focusing on creating a working environment, a site culture, centered around care, not just for the archaeology, the past and its remains, but also for the present and its people, which is something that has many practical benefits as well: better results, fewer injuries, more enthusiastic learning and involvement in the activities. And hopefully, on the long run, will help making archaeology a bit more physically and mentally sustainable and acceptable, which in turn leads to recognizing and being able to really appreciate a range of contributions, needs, and aspirations within that what's our community. We also hope that this won't stop at Govan either, but that people will then go home and then get perhaps to their workplace or to their education and bring some of this with them. Today's students might be tomorrow's site supervisors, might be tomorrow's lecturers, might be tomorrow's field archaeologists, and being able to apply some of this, advocate for themselves and their peers, we think that's also something quite important. We're also aware, obviously, of the limitations in this. There are so many things that we cannot control in excavation, and there are so many things that maybe other projects or initiatives cannot control, can control even less, whether that's time pressure or financial pressure. But what we really wanted to do was focusing on the variables that we could control and showing what can be done even just with that. So in practical terms, our approach was inspired by work by Megan Russell, who's a PhD candidate at the University of Bournemouth, who very kindly shared her approach in her project with us. And so it was centered around 3 or 4 elements that then were tailored to our site, our spaces, and the needs of our student and volunteer body. We had a wellbeing first aid kit, which comprised signposting resources, sensory aids, hygiene products, and we asked people to kind of contribute ideas of what they could find useful in there. We also had a quiet space within the church that was open at all times for breaks for any reason, and that's where the box was and was accessible, no question asked. And then we had wellbeing coordinators, so some of our fellow students who were there, happy to signpost resources, mediate any maybe conflicts or tensions arising, and that could be either talked to, they were approachable, or also we had a post box for anonymous communication to try and cater to any possible needs. Very briefly, these are the results that we got. So this side of the project has been supported from the very start by students and staff and taken on very enthusiastically. And the questionnaire that Michael, who met earlier, put together was completed by quite a good number of participants, and the responses were overwhelmingly positive. We also had very good feedback through more informal conversations, just looking a bit at the mood on site and through emails. We also had some fair points for consideration being raised, so whether we were creating false expectations on the reality of carrying out archaeology. We also noticed some lack of awareness on what we were doing and why, which is something that we ourselves need to fix with better communication. But overall, a very positive experience and some solid foundations to build on in the coming season.
Well, thanks very much for, once again, for allowing us to present what we've been doing. I guess I have a couple of conclusions. First of all, several of these students will be entering the job market any minute, so snap them up. Secondly, I want to invite everyone to come and visit us at Govan Old. The church is open from 11 to 4 daily, and we'll be digging there in June and in September, and we've got other weekends scattered through the year, so you may find us on site. And please share your knowledge of Govan widely, because one of the things we're really keen to do is to get away from the idea that we're a hidden gem. We want to be familiar to everyone. So thanks very much.